ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. It's 4 o'clock. Welcome to Montana's only statewide sports talk show. Broadcast on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Western Montana and across the state on SWX Television.
I like football!
Now, the 2017 Radio Sports Broadcaster of the Year on the show with back-to-back Montana Broadcaster Association awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. What is relevance in college football? The Open Championship, less than a day away, and a couple of transfers and recruits and all the things that go into college football heading into fall camp. It is Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio. Outstanding to be with you on this Wednesday afternoon. Hope you are having a fantastic day. Great to have you on board with us. ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television, the YouTube channel. Go check all of those things out. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris is celebrating their 30th birthday. That's right, July, 30 years they've been in business, and so all month they are offering you 30% off. That's right, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna or Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. You want to call us? Do so. 329-1899, area code 406. Very proud of that one. 329-1899. All guests join us via the Rangich Brothers RV phone line. If you'd like to listen and the radio's not the best way, the internet is. We got you there too, the stream. 1029ESPN.com is brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. In the show today, a conversation that we just barely opened the door of yesterday. And sometimes, you get into a cave and you think you're searching out the big cavern and there's a little pass-through and you realize, there's a much bigger cavern over here, but you don't have time for it. Well, we're going to get into the big cavern today. What is irrelevance in college football? Or conversely, what is relevance in college football and what that could mean for sort of fleshing out what the landscape of college football should look like in general in both our opinions. I think Colter and I have some overlapping thoughts on this and some disagreement, which means it's going to be a great conversation here off the top. It is a Wednesday. Wing It Wednesday, boys and girls. That's right. So we got some trivia questions for you. I'm going to do some Montana and Montana State football stuff, some actually really Big Sky Conference football preseason stuff. And Colter, in light of the Open Championship tomorrow, has got himself some Open Championship golf questions for you in the second hour. So make sure you call in for those wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern on the line there. We will discuss a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit about the Open Championship, some numbers. Obviously, if you're not talking about odds on favorites, what are you doing? And a new transfer, JC transfer on the offensive line for the University of Montana. This, to me, is a big get for the Grizzlies at obviously a position of need. And I want to talk about the significance of this and a few other things, the East-West Shrine game coming up and so forth, so some football around the state of Montana as well. So there you go. There is our show outlook. Colter, outstanding to see you. I'm not going to waste any time because I think we got a lot to say here in this first segment.
We do have a lot to say. You got to remind people, though, remember, we are broadcasting remotely from Katie O'Keefe's tomorrow, live from Katie O'Keefe, so come check it out. Come hang out with us, 4 to 6. Normal time, just a different venue.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We got to tell the people because we'll be down there doing the show, so come hang out, see us. Widmer Hefeweizen is sponsoring us to be down there, and we're going to be every Thursday, with the exception we're going to go to the Desperado once this summer as well on a Wednesday.
Right, because of Wing It Wednesday.
Why wouldn't you? Maybe we'll do live trivia there.
We will indeed. You might even be able to get your Wing It card and have your wings
bang
during the show.
Right there. Just cash it in on the spot. But anyway, but also, if you haven't been down to Katie O'Keefe's yet, get in there and put your name in the box for a pair of tickets. We're going to be drawing a pair of tickets to the Grizzly-Oregon football game. You want to go to Autzen Stadium in Eugene, September 14th. Our first pair of tickets given away tomorrow from Katie O'Keefe, so definitely be down there 4 to 6, and we'll make sure to remind you of that throughout the show today. Colton, we were talking about a bunch of things yesterday and got into, well, what always happens. We'll just keep on rocking and rolling. This is what happens. Normally our conversations start at the 4-minute length and end up being 4 hours in length into the wee hours. And so we talked about you've said this before, something along the lines of, if you're irrelevant if you can't win a national championship, and lots of teams can't win a national championship, something along those lines. But you particularly in the FBS, right, where the mid-majors have no chance, as it is right now, and we're in agreement on this, there is zero chance you can win a national championship. You are precluded from the possibility of even having an opportunity in the quote-unquote playoff to win a national championship if you are a mid-major football team, no matter what happens. We've seen undefeated football teams. UCF have been multi-year undefeated football teams, and teams that have won even, Big Six, New Year's Six bowl games, Sugar Bowl, etc., not getting any sort of look at a national championship, and what that says to you about the state of college football, particularly as it comes to relevant and irrelevant, and also with our conversation with Sam Herder regarding like Mississippi Valley State and, the most downtrodden school and so forth and so on in all of college football, potentially at the Division I level.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to kind of hash this out because I do think that there is – I think in the FCS where you can have split scholarships and where guys that maybe are a little bit more talented than the level that they're going to play at can make such a big impact. I don't think that there is anybody in the FCS that is facing true irrelevancy because you're only a couple players away, and also because I just look at the FBS and it's so much about money. And that's not to say that FCS isn't driven by money as well, but you can buy success on a much higher level, and make no mistake about it, the top 50 programs in the country do buy success at a much higher level. Whereas, take a team like the University of San Diego, for example. They do not have football scholarships. They compete in the Pioneer League. Mm-hmm. They've won playoff games. They've won several playoff games in the last couple years.
Right.
They have beaten Big Sky Conference teams. The funding difference between Cal Poly and San Diego in terms of the football is substantial. Now, San Diego is a private school that's an absolutely elite academic institution that can offer – they run it like a D3 program in the fact that you're getting academic scholarships to play football. So it's not as if these guys are completely out to dry. It's not as if they have this crazy dearth of talent. San Diego's really good. They have been good. They're a top 20 program right now in the FCS probably. But the disparity in money is vast, yet the disparity in results isn't quite as vast. There's not this sense of impossibility. Whereas when you look at the FBS, I think you take the 60 teams that are in the Power 5.
Yeah.
Those teams are just have a significantly higher advantage in terms of chasing a national title. But then you look at a conference like the American Athletic Conference. UCF's the obviously low-hanging fruit, the easiest example. But there's a lot of teams in the AAC.
Yes, Cincinnati.
That are not. They're not absolutely irrelevant.
Memphis.
They have a sliver of a percent of a chance to win a national title.
Oh, I mean, do they?
I'm just saying it's not absolutely impossible. If Houston was to get the number one quarterback in Texas and run the table and play a non-conference where they beat Texas A&M and TCU in Texas, and then went undefeated in the AAC, maybe they get in.
They were ranked. They were like a preseason top 10 team in either Herman's last year or actually Herman's first year in Texas when they had Ed Oliver and all of that, So
right,
I get you're right.
But what I'm then to complete this point though, a school like Western Kentucky or Old Dominion or Middle Tennessee State or Florida International, North Texas. I mean, how do you even gauge what relevance is if you are them? Because you're playing in a different division of football, even though you're not. If you're playing in the Conference USA, you're not chasing a national title. You're not chasing a playoff berth. There's no scenario where it could play out where you're going to get to the level of being able to be on par with Penn State and Ohio State and Michigan and Alabama.
Well, okay. Now let me ask you this as just a theory. Okay, take SMU. SMU, before they got the death penalty, was a national championship contending sort of school. Now, in a very different context at that time. Than what
and
they are
also,
now.
this was when they were in the Southwestern Conference, which was the preceded the SEC. So they were in arguably the power conference in all of college football, which is different than being in the AAC or the Conference USA or the MAC.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me ask you this. Okay, let's take Tulsa. Okay, Tulsa. Tulsa ever going to have a shot to win a national championship?
No.
Seems like not, right? However, along the lines of your theory, I mean, Oklahoma is obviously a very big college football state.
Yep.
And who knows when you have an alumnus? You know, why can Oklahoma State compete? Well, because they have one guy that's got it. And there's no reason that individual schools can't have a scenario in which all of a sudden the right person makes it in that sort of big-time way and decides, you know what we're going to do? We're going to be good at football now. And all of a sudden that happens. But here's, I think, more to your point. The landscape as it's built right now is built to prevent these teams. It's built to exclude these teams from a national championship type of conversation. It just is.
Right.
Now, my big take on this.
And more than just that, they're excluded from almost any of the notable bowls, too.
Notable bowls, you're right. I mean, yeah. It's already built to say one of you, out of you 60, each year, one can go to a quote-unquote notable bowl.
Right.
And I think there's a few more notable bowls outside of the Big Six that people will watch and stuff like that they go to.
But you're not fast tracking to the Cotton Bowl.
That's right.
If you're San Diego State,
sure.
You're playing in the Poinsettia Bowl,
the New Mexico Bowl,
or a BCS Bowl. I mean, you might if it all went right for you out of the Mountain West, Boise State, you're playing the Fiesta Bowl.
Right, but again, only one of those schools is basically allowed in. I mean, that's actually a rule on the books that one can play in one of the Big Six bowls, New Year's Six bowls, whatever. Now, I think that this is a flaw, and you've heard it from me ad nauseum over the years in what is this quote 4-team playoff, which is because it's less bad than the BCS doesn't mean that it's good, and it is a 4-team playoff, which I hesitate to use the word as you know, is better than just having the computer generate 2 teams and say these are your 1 and 2 teams and they're going to play each other. That doesn't do anything for me. The 4-team thing does a little more for me, but very little more. If it was an 8-team, or as it should be to me, at least a 12-team playoff, you would have a much greater possibility of getting in. And getting in, to me, is the ticket to say you have a chance to win the whole thing. And
I
as
agree,
it is right now, you can't get in. You can't.
You can't. But what I'm saying is that even if you could, make it a 16-team playoff. Make it a 24-team playoff. Texas San Antonio is playing irrelevant FBS football because they have no chance to ever get there. They could not raise enough money to be on par with a Power 5 school ever.
So this is where we have to flesh out our definitions. This is what I'm about. Us philosophy guys, we want to know, what do you mean when you say this? You are assigning, you're making synonymous the notion of relevancy with the possibility of winning a national championship.
But I'm saying that the absolute best case scenario for Texas San Antonio is still irrelevant.
No, it isn't. The best case scenario for Texas San Antonio is like a 10-win season.
And like the Las Vegas Bowl.
Yes. Now,
which is irrelevant to me.
It's irrelevant to you, It's not irrelevant to a whole bunch of people.
Like who?
Like all the people that would follow Texas San Antonio. Like
Do they have anybody that follows them?
Of course they do. San Antonio's like the sixth biggest city in the nation.
I want to know. I'll carry on because I want to know what their following is.
Let me ask you this. If you went to, I don't know, Tuscaloosa, okay, and you said, you know what, I'm from Missoula, Montana. I'm from Bozeman, Montana. We got the best FCS football teams in the country. We got the most people in the nation coming to these football games in Bozeman and in Missoula. And we've won this many national championships. And you know what they would go? It's irrelevant. It's FCS football. It does not matter. That's what they would say to them.
I like that we're going down this road, though, because what Commissioner of the Big Sky Conference, Tom Worcester show, what he said the first of his 3 appearances on this show, first time he's ever on the show, he said, if the state is in the name, it's important. And I think that is a huge difference because, sure, FCS football might seem irrelevant to Big Ten fans, but you have way more invested and entrenched fan bases when you have state schools that have widespread alumni bases and you're representing for places that have traditional brands that have lasted for so long because they are the state school. Like Texas San Antonio has only had football since 1994. It doesn't matter. They don't have the tradition. They don't have a rivalry that goes back 118 years.
Of course not. How could they? But that's not their fault.
No, I agree. But
they just got here, and so come back to me in 50 years, and maybe Texas San Antonio is one of the stalwarts of college football. But my point,
that's what I want to get at because I don't think that could happen. I don't think it could happen. I think that the Blue Bloods are the Blue Bloods. I do not expect there's a few exceptions, and the few exceptions are the city schools, Cincinnati, Houston, Memphis, the schools that are in huge population areas. If you can, I mean, it's just like it's like when you're at Georgia State and you're Ron Hunter and you land DeMarcus Simons because he's from Atlanta and he wants to stay there. You can get guys from the city that you're in. And you can rebuild it like that. I mean, people forget the Miami Hurricanes were irrelevant in the 70s. Miami is a private school. It's not what the U became. Coral Gables is completely different than what the Miami Hurricanes in their Desert Storm uniforms stomping people out and being, the scariest college football team of all time. It's completely different than what Miami is. But Howard Schellenberger, then into Jimmy Johnson and Dennis Erickson, locked up Liberty City. They said, we're going to recruit Miami. That's it. And we get the best dudes in Miami, and we're going to be the best team in the country. And that's what happened.
Let me try this one for you. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. University of Alabama, Birmingham.
Yes.
Lost football. Shut it down. Didn't have the revenue, not filling the stadium, people not going to games, not playing good football by and large. And it was gone for, I think, 2 years. And it came back a year ago. Now, it would be easy on your standards here to call University of Alabama Birmingham football irrelevant. Are they ever going to win a national championship? Are they ever going to go to a bowl that quote unquote matters? Are they ever going to do anything? I mean, maybe they might, but basically no. I mean, they would be an analog to University of Texas El Paso, right?
Yes.
But what happened when they shut down the football program?
All 17 of their fans freaked out.
That's right, all 17. And guess what? It was enough to override a university decision to generate money because there were thousands and thousands of kids that went to the school, of people in the community, of people who were fans, and of former football players that said, no. We care about this school. We care about this football program. And maybe none of you do, and maybe even our own administration doesn't recognize its importance to us as alums, to us as students, to us as former players, but we care about this school, and we're going to find a way to bring it back, to resurrect it. And that's exactly what they did. That is relevance. It's relevance to Birmingham, Alabama, and to that school and to those kids. And whether or not they are going to go toe-to-toe ever with Georgia, which they will not, isn't the way, in my opinion, to think about this.
Take the University of Idaho.
Yes.
Was there ever a scenario where Idaho was going to be
Never.
competitive on the FBS level?
Never.
And I think that there's dozens of schools in the FBS right now that are like that.
Let me ask you this: Idaho went to the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, right?
Yep, they did.
Which they won.
They won. Beat Colorado State. Good win. Probably the best win in the history of their program. Actually, Idaho was good in the 80s. But
it might. I mean, maybe it's not, but it's in the conversation as the best win in the history of their program while they were playing this crazy Sun Belt Conference schedule in a place that they were never going to be good, and such a weird. I mean, it's still one of the weirdest outliers ever to have Idaho in the FBS and in the Sun Belt, and yet there they were, and they won this game, and nobody cares about the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, but there they were, and they did it, and you know what? It's a source of pride for Idaho, and it should be. Seems to me.
So here, this is to contrast my argument, but also to complement it all at the same time.
All right.
What is, if Idaho was to win the FCS national championship sometime in the future?
Okay.
What provides more pride and fortification for your football program? Winning the famous Idaho Potato Bowl in your home state against Colorado State, only the third bowl game you ever went to as an FBS member, or winning a national championship?
I think winning a national championship.
Absolutely. And why too? Idaho is also a great example because they're going through it right now because the transition was going to inevitably be a tough one. I don't really know how you get your players to say, when you're Caden Ellis, for example, and you're like, well, I was a unanimous first-team All-League Sun Belt guy on a 9-win team that won a bowl game, and now I'm playing in the Big Sky. Why do I care? Mm-hmm. Of course you're going to take a step back, and that's what they experienced a year ago. But I think in 10 years, there'll be way more buzz about Idaho in our region than there ever was in the FBS.
No doubt.
And I think that's what I'm trying to say, is that Texas San Antonio or North Texas or Toledo or Tulsa, if they were to drop down, they would be more relevant to me because you could compete on a higher level. And those schools I just named are probably not great examples because they're not in FCS regions. They're not in FCS states.
Right.
But if you're in the Rocky Mountain West, if you're out west, I just think you're in a better situation to be in the Big Sky than you are to be in almost any league, save the Mountain West. And that's another one I want to talk about because I think the Mountain West is such an interesting conference.
I agree.
Because I think the Mountain West is completely different than everything that I'm talking about. Conference USA and the MAC they're just the have-nots of the heavily populated areas of this country. Whereas like the Mountain West has charter premier schools that are state schools, and that's I think where it makes so much of a difference. Like I don't think Wyoming has just as little of a chance as North Texas to win the national championship, but I don't think what Wyoming is doing is nearly as irrelevant because they're a state school. They have real pride, real fans.
I just think that here's the reason that what you say is true, and I'm going to give you this point to an extent, is that why do Montana and Montana State matter so much in Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, etc.? Because there isn't a higher level. It is the top in that place, and also because there's just not that many people, And so the everybody tends to migrate to some of those things. But if you take University of Texas El Paso, to say, I mean, there's more people in San Antonio than there's all three of those states combined.
Right.
And so to imagine that there wouldn't be a fan base for UTEP or whatever.
UTEP, yeah.
Or excuse me, I was thinking
UTSA.
El Paso. I meant San Antonio.
Right.
I apologize. But for University of Texas San Antonio, because they're such a recent program, and you go, I never saw that Hummel before. I didn't even know there was a school there, or whatever. Okay, and they certainly don't have the history and the roots and the alumni to have all that, but they certainly have the numbers, and over time that can generate. Now, will it ever be to them what Wyoming is to people in Wyoming and what Montana State are to people in Montana? Probably not, because you know what else they have? Dallas and the Houston Texans and the University of Texas and all of these things that are bigger fish in the same sport. So you don't get that, but it can still be a huge city phenomenon, and that would be a big deal. That would be a big deal in San Antonio, Texas.
Think of Appalachian State.
Mm-hmm.
Appalachian State won 3 straight national titles before their national title streak was ended in Missoula 2009, one of the great games in the history of Washington Grizzly Stadium.
Indeed.
But at that moment, they were riding high. Armani Edwards was a name in college football as an FCS player. People knew who Armani Edwards was, period. They won't go in the big house. They get one of the great wins in the history of FCS football to beat Michigan in the big house. And now they're good in the Sun Belt. They've been a 9 or 10 win team each of the last 2 years.
Right.
But where are they at? They're playing on Tuesdays, and I don't know. Where would you gauge if it's been a good move for them or not? Because there is the element of big fish in a small pond, small fish in a big pond. And, you want to say that you want to be the best, but then I look at some of the teams like in Conference USA. There's some teams in Conference USA that to me it seems as if they have football so that they can play money games to subsidize the rest of their athletic department so they can be competitive in other sports. Like Charlotte, for example. Charlotte has been good in basketball. They have that's a really fertile recruiting ground in that neck of the woods. And they have had no substantial accomplishments in football ever. But they can make money off of football. That's the other thing is, Idaho, that's what I want to know what they're going to do. How are they going to allot their budget? How's the budget going to look different? Because when they were an FBS independent, they were making a couple $1 million a year.
Right.
The 1 year when they played Ole Miss and Florida State the same year, that's like a $2 million payday. You're paying for all your non-revenue sports. You're paying for all your Olympic sports, all your Title IX sports, everything with those paychecks. So it's an interesting balancing of the budget, too. I just think that if you're in a position where it just seems as if you're stuck, and the reason that you're stuck is because all the people ahead of you simply have resources that you will never attain, that's just a really weird spot to be in. And what I'm saying as far as the FCS goes is that there's gigantic resource disparities in the FCS. Mm-hmm. Montana and Montana State have way more resources than most schools in the FCS. They're not winning the national championship every year. In fact, neither Montana school has won a national championship in almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. So it's not a direct correlation. Whereas at the top level, I'm so interested to see because there's been times in our lives.
But, when you look at who has won the national championship over the last 20 years, it's definitely the resource-heavy teams. North Dakota State isn't lacking for resources.
No, it's true. It's true, but like Eastern Washington doesn't have any resources, and they won a national championship. They have entrenched advantages, but they're not resource advantages.
Okay, that's fair.
And that's what I'm saying is that in our lifetimes, we've seen times when Texas, Alabama, Penn State have been bad. We have not, however, seen any of the true blue blood power schools be bad since the advent of all these gigantic TV networks, the Big Ten network, the SEC network. Since that happened, we have not seen the premier programs be absolutely god-awful bad.
What about Tennessee?
But have they ever had a 2-9? They're good for a 5-7, but I don't know if they have ever gone like 2-9 or 1-10.
Maybe so, but if you're Tennessee and you're a 4 or 5 win team, that's awful. That's really bad. And we have seen Kentucky and even Vanderbilt jump up and be, have a winning record in conference. And that, is something that is so those things are there, even though, Vanderbilt is a baseball school, if it's anything, and Kentucky's obviously a basketball school. And they're doing that in the SEC. So
Tennessee has had at least 5 wins every year since 1964.
Okay.
Except for Butch Jones's last year when they went 4-8 and they were 0-8 in the SEC.
That's
why you get fired. Because if you have one of the 10 biggest budgets in the country and you go 0-8, that's brutal.
I know we could do this, but I want to go back to the App State thing because that's a really good question because they were such a great FCS school, and they have that great win. But here's the thing. If you do something miraculous on a given day, like that's going to just live on. And they did that against Michigan, and that's phenomenal. But if you went now, where is App State? What city is it?
Boone, North Carolina.
Okay, Boone.
Yep.
If you go to Boone, North Carolina on a Saturday, you know what that is? Awesome. Like they are showing out for App State in the Sun Belt. It's one of the great atmospheres in mid-major college football in the country.
Yep.
So if you went there and you said, well, is this relevant? You would absolutely say, this is relevant. Is it better than what it was at the FCS is maybe a good question. I think the stadium is, they got 40,000 people there.
For sure.
They would never have that if they were still in the FCS.
That story I wrote about the tradition and prestige of North Dakota State last year before the national championship game, that's a great example as well, because North Dakota State, when they went from Division II to Division I, they had so much tradition and success to rest upon. I mean, they had won the North Central Conference like 25 times. So when you have all these banners, you have this fortified foundation. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying. These new programs in Texas specifically are the ones that I just don't know where they fit in. They just live in purgatory.
Yes.
Because how are you ever going to catch up to your neighbors? You can't. How are you going to catch Texas A&M? How? You can't.
I totally agree.
And so that's where it gets weird, because you don't have the entrenched tradition. Whereas if Idaho was to ever get back rolling, their fans would come back in full force, and it would be spectacular for the league, because they were good at one point. Jack Bishop. He was the athletic director at Central Washington when I was living in Ellensburg. It's like he used to always say, his famous line was, people always think it's about winning. It's not actually about winning. It's about having the hope that you can win. And that exists from having won before. Look at Montana State. Montana State has won a ton and then haven't won the last couple of years, but their fans have the hope that they could win again. It's the same thing with the Grizz. I mean, the Grizz have missed the playoffs 3 years in a row, but everybody that's a Grizz fan still maintains hope that it's not an if, it's a win. Montana is back.
Expectation, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have a 10-win expectation at Montana no matter what. Montana could have 10 straight losing seasons and people would still be like, what's 10-win expectation?
For sure.
Playoffs, home game, every year, because of how much tradition exists. It's the same thing with App State. It's the same thing with Georgia Southern. On the flip side, Florida International's got nothing. They have nothing. So how do they ever build it? And that's what I'm talking about with the relevance. You cannot ever actually have, I mean, until you do. But I don't know how you do it in this day and age because of the resources that are available to everybody that you're chasing.
It's Stu Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. It's a good conversation. I think it's worth having, especially this time of year. And we're in an interesting spot because new football teams continue to just sort of sprout up around the country from time to time, often with the backing of great money. But one thing you can't create is great tradition and just make people care about you. And that is a significant. I mean, that's why college football is what it is. There's more passion running through, one conference of college football than there is in the entire NFL. And the reason is because of the identity that people have with the school that they went to, with the guys. These were my peers. These were my classmates that I watched play on Saturdays, not just my heroes in the NFL or whatever it was. And you just can't recreate that without time. And then, I guess that's why schools care about having college football a lot of times.
Look at Eastern Washington. Look at how much Eastern Washington's won in the last 10 years. They've won so much in the last 10 years, including the last title by a Big Sky team, one of only 2 titles by somebody not named North Dakota State this decade. The increase in interest for Eastern Washington football has been very marginal. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about this, not to completely derail this thing, but I was thinking about DeHonta Hayes and Keith Moore, 2 projected starters for Eastern Washington. They were shot in Spokane the night before the Big Sky kickoff started. And thankfully they're okay. There's not really any details about the situation. But regardless, I was thinking about just the last year at Eastern Washington. Gage Gruber, your All-American quarterback, and Kurt Calhoun, your captain linebacker, get arrested downtown Spokane, lip off to the cops, disorderly conduct, say a bunch of embarrassing stuff. Not good. Suspended. Okay. Not a huge deal, but not good publicity. Got Keenan Williams, or All Big Sky DN. He drives his truck drunk into the side of someone's house, and then the guy comes out, and then he whips the guy. He beats the guy up. And then you have this incident, which, again, I'm not trying to pin culpability on these kids. It sounds like it was just a completely random act, but it's still just a not good situation to be in. But imagine if those three things would have happened at either of the Montana schools, what the climate would be like, how much fever there would be talking about that. And Eastern has remained, for lack of a better word, so irrelevant in that part of the world that it's just not even really talked about. It's almost as if it's expected.
What about Washington State? I mean, Washington State's sitting there in the Pac-12 and they got they'd have covered. But I mean, Mike Leach is being sued right now.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was now. I mean, I'm not covering Washington State. I'm sure people in Pullman and maybe the Pac-12 are aware of this. But Washington State itself, anything on the Palouse is happening in relative anonymity, and it just doesn't even matter what scale you're on. The only thing people know about is Gonzaga, and only that is coming about March 16th.
Washington State occupies a completely unique place in the Power Five to me.
Yes, they do.
Just because of so many different factors. We got to get out.
We got to go. Hey, it's a Wing It Wednesday. Got some, speaking of football questions for you about the Big Sky Conference and some preseason stuff. We'll help you through it. You got a lifeline. Give us a call, 329-1899, 329-1899. We'll do some trivia questions with you and get you some wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern right after this. Hey, been telling you about RecCon. It's this Friday and Saturday at the Fort Missoula Park. Outdoor recreation and conservation. That's what they're doing at RecCon. You see what they're doing? Recreation, conservation. It's where they meet. Dozens of exhibitors from gear manufacturers to outdoor nonprofits going to be there. Learning labs throughout the day for people to learn more about products and initiatives from a number of various groups. Tons of cool off-road vehicles. It's fun for the whole family. They're going to have beer from Big Sky Brewing. Food trucks out there so you can eat. It's from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. both days. You go online to recconmontana.com. RECCON Montana.com. You can check that out. 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Friday and Saturday at the Fort Missoula RecCon. It's where outdoor recreation and conservation meet. RecconMontana.com. Go enjoy. It's going to be 2 great days.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Alpine Touch has been providing you with the distinct seasonings you know and love for decades. Now, Alpine Touch has something to help you unleash the freshness of all the delicious flavors you need to spice up any meal. Check out Alpine Touch's new coarse grinds, unleashing the fresh taste of the garlic pepper or all-purpose seasonings to please any nose or taste bud. Coarse grinds can be purchased by the pound at retail locations around the state or at alpinetouch.com. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Florence Coffee Company wants to thank you, our customers, for voting us the Triple Crown in Missoula this year. You awarded us Best Barista, Best Coffee, and Best Coffee Hut. We work hard to serve superior products with all natural ingredients, provide great customer service, and offer a loyalty program like no other. We are a Montana family-owned and operated company, and we look forward to serving you throughout our native western Montana.
Under the big sky, Florence Coffee Company.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at SelwayArmory.com. Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh from the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, if our listeners have been injured in an accident, how can you help?
We're here to help you after a car accident by negotiating with insurance companies, recovering lost wages if you have any, and even getting you into a rental car if you need one. Call us today for a free consultation, and we'll get started helping you right away.
If you need help, get a hold of the Advocates. Call Josh at 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. The 73rd Annual East-West Shrine Game takes place in Butte Saturday. The final prep all-star football game of the summer pits some of Montana's top talent against one another for one of the biggest fundraising football games in the country. In the last 10 years, in fact, the Montana Shrine Game has raised nearly $1 million for the Shriners Hospital for Children in Spokane. The game is the largest Shrine Game fundraiser in the nation. This year's East team is coached by longtime Fairfield coach Les Meyer. The West is coached by Mike Cutler of Flint Creek, a head coach who has helped the Drummond-Phillipsburg Co-op to consecutive Class C 8-man championships.
The Montana State Women's State Amateur and Senior Amateur Golf tournaments are scheduled to begin Thursday and conclude Saturday at the Briarwood Golf Course in Billings. Last year's Women's AM winner, Morgan O'Neill, is back to defend her title. The Laurel and Rocky Mountain College graduate beat Annika Danhauer by one stroke at the Missoula Country Club. Danhauer, who just graduated from Bozeman and is signed to play golf at Montana State, is also in this year's Women's AM field. Defending Senior AM champ Joe Smith of right here in Missoula is also playing this week.
The roller coaster continues for the Missoula Osprey after a streak that pushed the O's to a tie for first. Missoula fell for the fourth straight time last night, losing 9-6 to the Ogden Raptors at home. Francis Martinez did go 3 for 4 in the loss.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Wednesday, give us a call, 329-1899. Basket of wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern for you, 329-1899. You can call right now. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris has been in business 30 years this month. That's right, 30 years. And they are celebrating by offering 30% off. Yep, that's right, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. You want to find us on Twitter at Gus Tutel. That's me, at 1029 ESPN, and at Skyline Sports MT as well. Coulter, the Open Championship is coming up starting tomorrow. And I'm not going to go through the odds. We'll do this here in just a little bit. But you sent me a video of Brooks Koepka, which I had tweeted out as well. It's about 12 seconds, and it's like a response. Did you see this whole thing with Tiger Woods texting Brooks Koepka to go play a practice round?
No.
So
can you imagine what that would be like?
Well, it's not that big a deal because Brooks never texted him back.
I'm not surprised by that at all.
No. And that was...
I'm not sure that Brooks Koepka likes anybody or anything.
The 12 seconds...
Besides curls.
Well, and ripping it. Striping it down the middle, 350. Tiger Woods was laughing because he first of all, he gave it up to Brooks, and how could you not? He's, the last 4 majors, he's been unbelievable, and this, that, and the other. And says, so I texted him to see if he wanted to go, play a practice round, and he's not gotten back to me. And then Tiger just started laughing, and so did everybody else. All the press people. How do you not text back Tiger Woods? Well, because you're Brooks Koepka. And then he was asked about it, and he goes, well, here's the thing. I don't really practice. And he says, and you can see this on Twitter. He says, if you're watching me on TV, that's when I golf. That's it. which is actually I think he said I don't practice for regular tournaments or for tournaments during the week. If you see me golfing, that's when I golf. I'm not out there preparing to go golf. Such an interesting phenomenon too, because you can play too much, right? You can play your way out of just going out there and hitting the golf ball.
Well, I mean, that was what happened to Tiger Woods during the lull is a wrong word because he was so out of control good. But there was that moment in time where he won something like, I think 6 out of 9 majors. It was when he had the Tiger Slam. It wasn't the complete year, but he won 4 straight majors, and then I think he won 3 in the next 6. And I mean, he was unbelievable. He had like a 75% chance of winning majors at that moment in time. But as he continued to try to push the envelope, he bulked up a little bit, put on a lot of strength, and then got a new swing coach, and then he started playing just relentlessly, 12 hours a day. And it's not as if it ruined his game, but it knocked him down from that absolutely untouchable level, just one notch.
Yeah,
because he was playing too much. We saw it with David Duval too. He did the same thing, and then he was gone. It was after it was over for him. It was over. He was just out. He was just irrelevant.
World's #1. Never heard from him again. And so I don't know. I don't know if there's a shelf life. I mean, of course there is a shelf life. I don't know how long it is for Brooks Koepka, if it's going to be really long or if it's not going to be. But he has certainly, just gone out there and, sauntered around the golf course. The one thing about this, so by the way, okay, let's do this. Let's hold on to this because I want to talk about this a little more, and we're already up against the break because we went long in the first one. So 329-1899, if you want to do a Wing Wednesday, we'll keep on with the Open Championship after this.
The Big Sky Breakdown at SkylineSportsMT.com continues to give you the inside look from around the Big Sky Conference and the state of Montana. The most in-depth podcast in the Treasure State gives you multiple episodes each week year-round with commentary, analysis, interviews, and entertainment from around one of the most storied conferences in the West.
Whether it's full uncut interviews with Montana State head football coach Jeff Choate or Travis Secure's thoughts on his outstanding Montana men's basketball team, everything you need to hear is available on the Big Sky Breakdown. Take a look inside the best stories in the conference and the most detailed analysis in the state. The Big Sky Breakdown, it has you covered.
Whether it's X's and O's acumen of Brooks Nuanez or the comedic banter of Ryan Tutel or the dry humor of Andrew Houghton.
And don't forget the best connections to everybody that matters in the sports world across the Big Sky Conference from Colton Nuanez. And by the way, thank you for calling me funny.
You're welcome. The Big Sky Breakdown will present you with all of it and more at SkylineSportsMT.com.
The Big Sky Breakdown, proudly presented by Town Pump Food Stores and Selway Armory. Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here, and I'm with Josh of the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, what are people left dealing with after an accident?
Well, quite a few things, actually. We see people that are in pain, they still need to get to work, they need to raise their kids, and now they have to take time to go see doctors and other healthcare providers. They're frustrated with working with the insurance companies and getting the runaround. We'll take on the burden of dealing with the insurance companies so you can get the best settlement possible and get back to your life.
Find your advocate online at MontanaAdvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
Last-minute barbecue invitation? Stop at Town Pump on the way. Pick up White Claw, Truly, and Smirnoff Seltzers 12-pack cans for only $14.99. Save the other arm to pick up Gardettos and Chex Mix. Buy one, get one free. Be the barbecue hero with a little help from Town Pump.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
You're a big league fan. You expect big league service. At the Desperado, you get exactly that. With 35 flat screens, ice-cold brews on tap, and Missoula's #1 wings, you're free to sit back and enjoy every pitch. This summer, make the Desperado your baseball home away from home. Cool off after work, relax on the weekends, soak in some great food and drinks, and watch your team make yet another great push for October. And hey, if yours can't do it, there's plenty of other teams and fun to go around at the Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
You into her?
I don't think I know enough to be into her.
I'm into her. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We're broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday. That's right, 30 years. And they are celebrating this month by offering you 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month long for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. Coulter, we were talking about the U.S. Open, or excuse me, the Open Championship. And the one thing that I was going to say, when it comes to Brooks Koepka is, the game one of these is not like the others, that you had to play as a kid. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the majors, that's the Open Championship. You could just mark it. There's going to be 36 hours, between 36 and 72 hours of horrific golf conditions. It's going to be blowing, and it's going to be wet, and it's going to be ugly. And it's just a fact when you're out there on the British Isle trying to swing away. There's no trees anywhere. It's hard to tell where the fairway ends and where the green begins. It's all brown. There are bunkers everywhere. There's long grass and hay everywhere. It's generally, I would think, not that really fun of an experience. And yet, so this is the game. This is what it is to be golfing in what used to be the British Open, now the Open Championship. The thing to me is that it requires a vastly different skill set. There are some people who've been really great sort of in traditional American courses that have struggled mightily, and vice versa when it comes to the Open Championship. Your chipping has to be absolutely superlative. Your distance control. Those are the things that really matter. And also, and this is the one thing that I don't like about the Open Championship as much, there's an element of luck, because very much I've seen entire tee times wiped off the board because you got the morning crew on the Thursday had nice weather, and then the storm set in the afternoon, and you got blown to smithereens, and the storm was still blowing in the morning when you went back out, and then kind of subsided. And so the group on Thursday that went early and then late on Friday had a 7-stroke advantage on average, and a bunch of guys that would have made the cut, maybe should have made the cut, didn't, and so forth. And again, it's not unfair. It is just the weather. There's no fairness about it, but it is so drastic and impactful that you have to get sort of fortunate to go there and play well. And so that's the one thing where I go, okay. And that's why I find this one to be sort of the hardest to prognosticate, because it is such a different style of golf, and usually the weather is so impactful, and who knows if your number's going to come up, and all of a sudden Brooks Koepka, who's minus the wind 8 strokes better than everybody else, doesn't even make the cut. You understand what I'm saying?
When you look at, there's been some transcendent guys that have been able to be great across the board, no matter what the major is. You look at a guy like Tiger Woods. He's what you're referencing. A lot of times, guys with games like Tiger, that doesn't necessarily project to the British, to the Open Championship, because so often being able to hit it far and being able to pound it and get on in 2 on par 5s and stuff like that, it's not that conducive to the Open, because the wind's blowing, because of the way that like you're talking about, just some of the weather disadvantages that are there. And guys like Tiger and Jack have been able to overcome that, but often the most dominant Open Championship players have been the guys that play more links style golf, that play way more finesse style of golf. You look at Tom Watson. Tom Watson's probably the greatest modern era Open Championship player. He won the Open 5 times in the span of maybe 10 years.
Right.
And you just could, in late 70s, early 80s, you could just pencil Tom Watson in. You just knew. I mean, Tom Watson almost won the freaking
Even
thing.
when he was 60.
Like 65 years old. I mean, he was in the mix a couple years ago.
Yes.
And I think that's why you see guys like Patrick Harrington. Has he ever won a major besides the Open?
Right.
I mean, he went back-to-back in the Open, and I don't know if he's actually won another major. I mean, look at Watson.
Right.
Watson finished with 8 majors, but 5 of them were the Open, and I think he won the Masters twice, the U.S. Open once, never won the PGA. But then you look at guys like Giuseppe Ballesteros. That was where he made so much of his money. Nick Baldo was always trying to keep up with some of the big dogs, and then when he would get to the Open, he would have a much better chance just because of his familiarity and the style of game that he plays. Right, Francisco Molinari last year. I mean, I don't know if Francisco Molinari could go toe-to-toe with all the rest of the big dogs like Justin Johnson and Ricky Fowler and Jordan Spieth and Rory McIlroy and Brooks Koepka at the Masters or at the U.S. Open. He can beat them at the Open.
He had a look at the Open or the U.S. Open as it was, but you're right. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, not really a surprise, but European players tend to finish better at the Open Championship than they do in the rest of the time. If you're wondering, if you're playing along at home, entertainment purposes only, Rory McIlroy is the odds-on favorite according to our friends in Nevada. He is 9-1 right now. His odds. He is in second by himself. Is Brooks Koepka at 11-1, and after that, I mean, the odds drop significantly. Dustin Johnson and Jon Rahm are both 16-1. Tiger is alone at 20-1 in fifth, which I find. I mean, again, it's such you can never assess this stuff in terms of what's actually going to happen when it comes to Tiger based on these numbers, because they have to put him in a place because he's going to draw change from the public, man. They're going to go and they're going to put it on Tiger. And so, there's several other guys. Fowler's at 25-1. Molinari, the defending champion, at 30-1. Jordan Spieth down the way at 40-1, and his struggles have been well documented and is changing his swing and so forth and so on. But he's a guy who, if he's got it going, I mean, his short game is what makes him go, and you got to have it at the Open Championship. And he's won it, and he's been great at it before. So he's a guy that I think has the potential. I don't know if there's a lot of in between for Jordan Spieth. I think it's a missed cut or a top 10 type of deal for Jordan Spieth. And so we'll see how that goes. I'll tell you the one guy I wouldn't want to be is Matt Wallace. Who's Matt Wallace? Great question. He's an Englishman, and I don't know how good a golfer he is. He might not be good. He might be great. I don't know. I mean, he's obviously pretty good. He's played in the Open Championship. You know who he's paired with tomorrow, Coulter?
Who's that?
Tiger Woods and Patrick Reed. Whew. No, thank you. No, thank you. I would not like to be the third wheel of that triune headed off for 18. I think on consecutive days, you stay with the same group both days, I believe. So that's 36 holes in 2 days that I'm going to just hard pass for me on that. Anyway.
One interesting stat about this Open is it's at Royal Portrush, which is only the second time it's ever been at Royal Portrush. I mean,
which is rare because usually it's all about the legacy and the history, and 400 years this has been a golf course.
Right. I mean, Prestwick has hosted the Open Championship 24 times. St. Andrews has hosted it 29 times.
Right.
Carnoustie, where it was last year, has hosted it 8 times. Muirfield has hosted it 16 times. And those are all Scottish courses. And then, the English courses like Royal St. George, Royal Liverpool, they've hosted a dozen times each. But Royal Portrush, only the second time, first time since 1951. It's also, of the last 147 recognized Open Championships, 96 of them have been in Scotland, 50 of them have been in England. This will be only the second ever in Ireland.
Wow. And the first one ever was here.
The first one ever was at Royal Portrush in 1951. So this has been a lifetime or more for a lot of people in this. But I think that's also interesting that Rory's the favorite, given that he's Irish.
He is Irish, and it's it's right there on the coast.
Gosh, that would be Imagine how much fun it would be to be Rory McIlroy if you won the Open Championship in Ireland.
That might be the mic drop.
I'm good. I'm just going to stay right here.
Out.
Taking the next year off. I'm going to go to all the pubs.
Oh, I mean, maybe
sing, dance, drink.
That's just, I'm good. It's done. He won the Irish Championship, the Irish Open, and he was very, emotional about it, and not emotional like he was as excited and enthusiastic and as happy about winning that as any tournament I've ever seen him win. And it means something when you do it at home. There's no doubt about it. And we know this: it's not far from his hometown because it's on Ireland,
which is not big.
I mean, what we. Usually on a global scale, the islands are bigger than what you think they are because you're looking at them on a world map. But Ireland, come on. Let's do this, Colter. Don't look it up. Okay? We're going to take a break. We'll come back. Top of the hour, trivia question. You and me both. What's your best guess, north to south, the longest points in Ireland? What do you think?
You want me to guess right now?
Guess.
75 miles.
See, I'm gonna go 100. I'm gonna go $127. Go 127 on it. There's a guess. We'll see who's right next.
We ate a lot of steaks before we came up with the Montana Club's Private Reserve Cut Angus. It's as good a steak as you're going to get. Our Private Reserve Cut Angus is specially cut for us. And with our custom seasoning, it has a flavor that's absolutely incomparable. We're confident that it will satisfy the most discriminating steak customer for an unrivaled steak experience. Real Montana, real food. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get up to $150 instant rebate on 4 backcountry MT or AT tires or $50 on 4 road control passenger tires. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here with Josh from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident and need help dealing with the insurance company, you should give The Advocates a call.
It doesn't cost anything at all to call, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your situation. You don't want to have to be dealing with contacting the insurance companies and setting up your claim. We can do that for you from start to finish. We'll take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give Josh a call, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers, but you deserve an advocate. In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, and you may think you'd pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it, but not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with knowledgeable specialists that can answer your questions. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com. Take summer by storm with a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the summer sales event, rebates go as high as $2,000 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on our legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $2,000 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Summer Sales Event at Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday, and they are celebrating with unprecedented savings on select parts and accessories with the purchase of a new Polaris off-road vehicle, Beta or Husqvarna dirt bike, or any of their new line of Crest pontoon boats. Go to Kurtz Polaris for details. Offers valid in U.S. through 7/23/19 on new 2015 to 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. The 73rd annual East-West Shrine Game takes place in Butte Saturday, the final prep all-star football game of the summer. Pits some of Montana's top talent against one another in the most successful and fruitful fundraising games in the country. In the last 10 years, in fact, the Montana Shrine Game has raised nearly $1 million for the Shriners Hospital for Children in Spokane. The game is the largest Shrine Game fundraiser in the nation. This year's East team is coached by longtime Fairfield coach Les Meyer. The West is coached by Mike Cutler of Flint Creek, a head coach who has led the Drummond-Phillipsburg Co-op to consecutive Class C 8-man championships.
Montana State women's amateur and senior amateur golf tournaments scheduled to begin Thursday and conclude on Saturday at the Briarwood Golf Course in Billings. Last year's women's AM champ Morgan O'Neill is back to defend her title. She's a native of Laurel and a product of Rocky Mountain College. Last year she beat Annika Danhauer by one stroke at the Missoula Country Club. Danhauer, who just graduated from Bozeman High and is signed to play golf at Montana State, is also in this year's women's AM field. Defending senior AM champion Joe Smith of Missoula is also playing this week.
And the roller coaster continues for the Missoula Osprey after a streak that pushed the O's to a tie for first. Missoula fell for the fourth straight time Tuesday, losing 9-6 to the Ogden Raptors at home. Francis Martinez went 3 of 4 in the loss. They played tonight, final game of the homestand, 7 o'clock.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Curious about Irish geography, we have it. 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Regis Brothers RV phone lines. Tutel Nuanez, hour number 2. Coming straight at you. We're broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83, and see the online at KurtzPolaris.com. It is their 30th birthday at Kurtz. All month long, all July long. You get into Kurtz Polaris, and you're going to get 30% off. That's right, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply, so see Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. If you missed anything in the first hour, listen on the podcast. It's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's there wherever you get your podcast, and it's available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham hotels. East-West at its widest, Ireland, 175 miles. North-South at its longest, 301 miles.
A lot farther than we thought.
Oh, about 4 times what you said. Oh, well over double what I said, almost triple. So we did short Ireland a little bit. By the way, Royal Portrush is not only in Ireland, it is in Northern Ireland. It's, in fact, on the northern coast of Northern Ireland. It's as northern as you can get, nearly, in Ireland. And so that would be even more home for Rory.
Any word on the forecast?
I have not looked.
Rain?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's middle of the summer, July. I mean, you might get some nice days out there. I'll tell you what, when it's pretty, it's spectacular. You know, all the green up there on the ocean, the birds flying around. It's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. We're excited for it.
Coulter, we wanted to do a couple of things here. We wanted to talk about the East-West Shrine Game, a couple of recruiting things, but I think, and this is really significant, we should have talked about this more. By the way, join us at Katie O'Keefe's tomorrow. We'll be there 4 to 6, giving away Grizz Oregon tickets. Come on down and say hi.
But buy some Hefeweizens for everybody as well. Windward Brothers Brewing is presenting these remote broadcasts we'll be doing for the next 9 weeks, and first people through the door will get you a Windward Brothers Heffa on the Windward Brothers themselves.
Freebie on the tab. How about that? Okay. What's fire code at Katie O'Keefe's? I'm gonna have to be set up a barrier.
I can't wait for you to see it in there. They
revamped the whole thing.
Yeah, shout out to Taylor and the boys for letting us do it. Actually, I was in there today making sure we had it all lined up, and they were cleaning the carpets. I think it's probably a coincidence. I don't think it's necessarily for us, but
I believe
sparkle
it is for us.
Sparkle and clean in there.
Love
they got all sorts of great stuff in there. They got all sorts of relics and cool memorabilia. It's a sweet bar.
The University of Montana, we talked about Colter being maybe the biggest wild card of the 5 teams that we had picked and really that are pretty unanimously picked to be the top 5 teams in the Big Sky Conference in football this year. Much of that stems from question marks at the offensive line where they were just, they just flat out did not recruit the offensive line in any way like would be normally done while Bob Stitt was the head coach at the University of Montana. And consequently, they were very undersized, very young, and moving guys from all over to try and fill in at the spot. And I thought they did a remarkable job. I thought Chad Germer maybe put in one of his best years ever last year in terms of the productivity that they were able to create. But there's no question that it was an overwhelming weakness, and it's still expected to be not an area of strength for the Grizzlies this year. Then you wake up today or you go through the day and you find out Moses Mallory has chosen the University of Montana over several offers, which Coulter you get into, a 6'3", 295-pound offensive guard who's a JC transfer. So a guy who, anytime you see a JC transfer, you think, ready to go basically day one. He's ready to play, especially with his size and the need that Montana clearly has. This could be, and I know very little about Moses Mallory, but this could be a very significant development, it seems to me, for the University of Montana for this football season.
Well, no doubt, and you don't ever really bring in a JC guy this time of year unless
Right.
you expect him to straight up play. And, Montana's deficiencies on the offensive line last year were because of a bunch of different things. I think that I think that their tackles, Conlon Beaver and Colton Kynes, are developmental guys that just weren't quite ready, but they kind of got thrust into it, and they both actually got better as the year went along. Mm-hmm. But it's not as if those guys don't have upside. They have some potential. Montana was just in a situation where a lot of the guys that once upon a time had potential were not available, and then all of a sudden now you have guys that are playing that are new
freshmen.
You got guys that are new to the position, or guys that are brand new to college football, or guys that are formerly walk-ons. You talk about Cole Sane getting reps as a true freshman. You talk about Skylar Martin getting reps as a redshirt freshman, even though Skylar Martin is probably about 20 to 30 pounds shy of what he will be and what he should be to play on the offensive line. You talk about a guy like Cody Meyer, who was a walk-on once upon a time. He's your starting center. So I think that they had a lot of different factors that went into their struggles. But I think that on the tackle spots, I do think that both Beaver and Kynes have upside. The upside for the guys on the inside was a little bit more limited, and I think that they've remedied that in several different ways. First of all, I think that moving Cy Sermon to center is really good. I've heard from people that are close to the program as well as people in the program that Cy Sermon and Dalton Sneed have great chemistry, great trust with each other, and that Sermon is a really, really, really smart kid that'll help sort of solidify the cerebral portion of the offensive front. And then I think that the guys that they had at guard, they were so banged up there. The fact that Brandon Scott and Dallas Hart both weren't really available because they were hurt, and Angel Villanueva was hurt. Well, now all of a sudden you got guys that just have no experience whatsoever. But you add Cordell Pilons, and you add now Moses Mallory, and you switch Cy Sermon to center, and now all of a sudden you have some options on the interior. And now that when guys like Villanueva are, maybe a starter or maybe not, that's good for your depth. When guys like Cole Sane is just going to be a backup as a true sophomore, or maybe even if they can do it, maybe he even gets a redshirt in his second year. Who knows? But having guys like Brandon Scott, Dallas Hart, Angel Villanueva, and Cole Sane rounding out your top 8 or 9 rather than the only guys you can even look at, it just helps with the depth so much. I think they just have a chance to be a lot better.
Well, so and tell him, Coulter, a little bit about Moses Mallory, who's again from East Arizona Junior College. He was a 3-star recruit out of high school, and he had a bunch of offers. A lot of times you think, well, if you're a school, any school that's in need of a guy, you just go find me somebody that plays this position and let's bring him in here. But this is a guy who was a very, very highly recruited kid coming out of East Arizona.
Offers from West Virginia, Weber State, Jacksonville State, Tennessee State, North Alabama, Stephen F. Austin, and Morehead State. So You got one Power 5 offer in there in West Virginia, as well as the Weber State and Jacksonville State offers sort of pop out. Stephen F. Austin's a solid program as well. But the junior colleges in Arizona went away. They don't have football anymore. Junior college football in Arizona was cut. So you wonder if that impacted this kid's recruiting just in terms of the reason he's still available. Maybe there was just some stuff where, maybe he had a hard time getting his transcripts in order, or maybe, when you don't have a program to help you get out, so to speak, I just don't really, I don't know if that had any effect on it or not. But when you look at the guy, 6'3", 295, it's like I always say, there's such a varying, there's such different scopes of size. Geno Atkins is 6'1", 285 pounds, but it's impossible to say that Geno Atkins doesn't have elite size. He's so big because of his muscles, right? Just because of, just his physical stature, though, right?
Muscles,
there's guys that are 6'1", 285 that look like me, and there's guys like 6'1", 285 that look like Geno Atkins. It's a lot different, you know what I'm saying? And when you look at Moses Mallory, he looks the part. I thought his film, he's got great snap. He's very violent with his hand punch. He's a good finisher on his blocks. Seems like he's mean. And then you look at pictures of him, and that's what they look like. He looks the part all the way. I told you I'd rather have his 6'3", 295 than, no offense to a lot of the guys on the Grizz, but the Grizz have some guys that listed size are gigantic, 6'7", 320. But they don't look like Moses Mallory looks. Mm-hmm. Moses Mallory looks like, he looks put together like a Division I offensive lineman, and I think that if his film translates to the skill on the field, I think he has a real chance to push for a starting spot. And then I think if you look at that offensive line, and now you have Conlon Beaver as a second-year starter and a junior at left tackle, the two guard spots, you at least have your most veteran guy in Angel Villanueva having to fight for some time with Cordell Pelons and Moses Mallory. You got Cy Sermon solidified at center, and then you got Kynes at right tackle. I think that's it's a better and more experienced line than it was a year ago.
It is, and it's remarkable how, in a position group that's 5 guys, bringing in one guy all of a sudden changes the potentially. And again, we don't know a ton about Moses Mallory, but can change the complexion of what you think you might have there significantly, and that that's major for the University of Montana. They're going to have a stable. I think people are questioning, what's the running back situation, and because it's very much open, very much, unknown. But there's a group of guys that seem like they are all potentially capable. And by the way, you can be a great running back as a redshirt freshman, as a redshirt sophomore, as a running back.
The 3 best running backs in the league last year were freshmen.
It's very hard to be a great offensive lineman, even a good offensive lineman, as a redshirt freshman. They just don't. If you're good like that, you're at the Power 5, period, because it takes time to become 300 pounds, for crying out loud. Believe me, it's taken me almost 40 years. So I am, so it's just the reality of the position, and I feel for these kids on the offensive line in a lot of ways too, because it's not, how much of it is about skill. I don't know. I'm not a scout. I think it is a lot more about just simply time and strength and size and coaching. And you do get better over time, and that's a position where you just can't overestimate what it is to be a junior and a senior over against a freshman and a sophomore. And so this, is a boon. And if you consider offers from places like West Virginia, Jacksonville State, et cetera, you go, oh, wow, okay, like this seems... You become very optimistic if you're a University of Montana football fan and what that might mean for this football team. And I think that the University of Montana has been rare in its Big Sky Conference history dating back to the 60s that it has ever been able to fly under the radar. And I'm not saying that they're flying under the radar as such, but they are certainly not. They're coming in yours and my estimation, from a poll standpoint, as the 5th team of the top 5. And I think that in a lot of ways that suits Bobby Hauck and some of this team to a T in terms of it's fine. It's fine. Come check in with me on August 31st, and we'll see where we're at. Check in on November 1st, and we'll see where we're at. And I think that is not a role that the University of Montana has been able to have very often in its history as a football team. And certainly it's not, if you asked any coach, who would you like to be? I mean, we talked to Aaron Best, right? They're the top dog. They went to the national championship game. They're the number one pick and all that kind of stuff. Like, it comes with expectations, but we want expectations because it means you're great. It means you're doing it right. It means you're the hammer, all that stuff. Of course, that's what every team wants to be. But there's an advantage to being a wild card and thinking that you're probably better than what people think that you are. I mean, certainly Montana State played that very well last year, right? I mean, Jeff Choate, oh, yeah, we're just the 8th team in the Big Sky, on and on. And
that's an interesting point. It's an interesting road to go down because being an underdog and embracing that is almost a mentality. It's almost in the DNA of Montana State because they have been, because of the streak, it developed this inferiority complex that just permeated everything. But then they've used that in certain ways to their benefit in terms of, quote unquote, chasing the Grizzlies, trying to live up to the shadow that's cast by Montana, that was cast with such the dominant run that Montana had between 95 and 2009. But you made an interesting comment. You said that you think it suits Bobby Hauck well. I don't know, because honestly, the Grizzlies have never been the dark horse in the league. Never. Not in the modern era, not in the last 20 years, not in the last 25 years. And Bobby Hauck has never been the underdog. Bobby Hauck inherited a team that won the national championship 2 years earlier when he first took over for Joe Glenn, and they just went 80-17.
Here's what I'm saying. It suits him. It's in this respect. I think we can agree that Bobby Hauck coaches with a certain degree of agitation.
Yes. Although last year he was quite docile on the sidelines often.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about his persona, like body language and all that. I'm just talking about when we talked to him. I mean, he told us in the interview yesterday. Yeah, mid-July, start fighting with Tim. Yep, starting to get angry, starting to get riled up, starting to get pent up, starting to need some football as an outlet, right? And what better thing to be able to do when it comes to, finding an edge? Not that he's ever needed an edge, but what are you going to go out there and preach to your team? The script is out there for you, and I think in that respect, that works to his advantage. And frankly, Jeff Choate as well. Just because Montana State has, gotten now 5 guys on the preseason team and all that. I mean, they're the 4th or 5th team, depending on which poll you're looking at. Just like Montana is, they're dead even according to the polls. They average out to 4.5. So he's got the same.
Oh, absolutely, and
sermon to preach.
Oh, totally, and the fact of the matter is that the Cats have to beat somebody. Cats have played the toughest schedule in the league the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. They played all the best teams, not only in the league but in the country. Mm-hmm. They haven't won any of the games yet, though. It's all fine and dandy. Year 1, year 2, taking South Dakota State down to the wire, losing 31-27. But year 4, you got to win that game. You got to. I mean, it was Southeast Missouri, a playoff team from a year ago. You got to win that game. Mm-hmm. The Western Illinois win last year was a better win early than what it turned out to be because Western Illinois kind of struggled and they went 5-6. It was a good win that happened in Bozeman last year,
no doubt.
But other than the Grizz game, Montana State does not have that signature win because pundits would say, incarnate word, upstart program. Okay, you beat them in the playoffs. It's a playoff win. They were 24th in the nation when you beat them. That's all fine and dandy, but they're brand new. Mm-hmm. They don't. Montana State does not have that premier win yet under their belts, and so I think that caters to the underdog mentality you're talking about as well.
Sutil Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Quickly, Coulter, let's do a prep extra segment here. It's brought to us by the Farmers State Bank. The Shrine game, as we talked about in the news, is this weekend. Les Meyer is the coach of the East. Mike Cutler is the coach of the West. And there's a number of future Grizz and future Bobcats playing in this game. And a number of coaches who are crossing their fingers that there's no injuries that take place in this game. But just lay out for us, I mean, the East-West Shrine game, again, the biggest fundraiser as of Shrine games in the nation happens in the state of Montana and in Butte. And so that's a very, very cool aspect to this whole thing, too.
Yeah, I mean, there's Shrine games all around the country, and the Montana Shrine game has been one of the top 2 producers for the last handful of years, and I think that's really cool. When the game's in Butte, it seems like that's such a great central location.
Right.
And Naranche Stadium has so much history and haunted by ghosts in Naranche for sure, in the best of ways, right? And it's just such an old school place that has a spirit about it. And so I think that's a great venue to host that as well. And it seems as if there's always even a better turnout there and a lot more funds are raised. And that's a cool thing because that's really what this is all about at the end of the day. As far as the coaches go, Les Meyer is the East coach and Mike Cutler, the West coach. Les Meyer from Fairfield. He'll coach his son, Ryder Meyer, who's coming to play for the Grizzlies for the final time. Ryder Meyer was a 4-year starter at Fairfield, and so this will be the last time he plays for his old man, so that'll be a cool experience.
Yeah.
And Mike Cutler, he's led Drummond-Phillipsburg Co-op, Flint Creek, to back-to-back 8-man Class C championships. Ryder Meyer and Ryan Simpson from Bozeman are future Grizz that are going to be playing for the East. And then the West, they have a lot more of the D1 guys. Future Grizz, Dylan Botner from Whitefish, Jace DeWalt from Missoula Sentinel, Carver Gilman from Whitefish, Ryan Tyrrell from right here, Missoula Loyola. They're all playing for the West. Those are all guys that are future Grizzlies. And then as far as future Bobcats go, Logan Gilliard from Big Fork, Alex Johnson, Helena High, Rylan Ort from Missoula Sentinel, Holden Sampson from Helena High are all playing for the West as well. So the West with almost double digits in terms of the future Bobcats or Grizzlies, whereas the East just have a couple.
Also news out of Huntley Project. Seems like it's going around right now. But Guy Croy, former Grizz, has been the head coach there in football, resigned on Monday, citing philosophical differences with the administration for the Red Devils.
And, we talk a lot about programs and what makes a program in high school football, especially in a rural state like Montana. But there's definitely some defined programs in Montana. They're not just at the AA level. And among the Class B teams, I would say that Huntley Project has one of the best programs. And Guy Croy's done a great job. He played safety for the Grizz back in the 90s, and he's done a great job. I mean, they've developed a program to the point where, just like we always talk about with Loyola, the best kid at Loyola is probably going to be getting recruited by the Cats at the Grizz. Every year, the best guy at Loyola is likely a Division I caliber guy. Huntley is one of the only other Class B schools that can say that. They have great facilities. They have a great weight room. They have a great weight program. They have a great strength coach. And all that stuff is catered to them being able to produce several Division I guys. Taylor Deese from Huntley was a multiple-year starter on the defensive line for Montana State. Coney Dole obviously had a tremendous story. The young man who lost the lower part of his leg and made it up to play on the Cheetah Blade for 3 years on the Cheetah Blade prosthetic at Montana State before he ultimately had to retire because he just couldn't handle the pounding, but still an amazing story. And then you look at Lane Sumner, who has a chance to get significant snaps and have significant carries for the Bobcats this year as well. But this is too bad that Guy Croy is stepping away because he has done a really good job there. He's helped a lot of kids get opportunities, and they have a really, really good program. And it just seems as if this is becoming more commonplace. And we've talked to a lot of our coaching colleagues and friends, and they say it's really hard situation because it used to be your kid comes home and they complain about the coach, and you tell them, no, you listen to your coach, you listen to your teacher, you listen to your principal, you listen to your elders, and then maybe you have a discussion with that person on an adult level. But it's not now. It's just as if, your coach is going awry. Let's overthrow this guy. It's almost like some sort of weird coup or something that happens, and it's just really too bad when you look at situations like Zane and Pitts, when you look at situations like Guy Croy. In these small communities, those guys have so much influence in such a positive fashion, and to kind of railroad someone out like that, it's brutal, honestly, and it's going to affect the kids, and that's what really is too bad. You wonder where Guy Croy resurfaces because he's had a good run there, and he does have some college football ties, being that he did play. His son is one of the best prospects in the state this year, so You wonder how that's going to affect his senior year. I mean, it must have been a pretty dire situation or a very uncomfortable situation for a guy to walk away when his son is going to be a senior. Obviously, He doesn't want to be involved in the drama whatsoever. So, a bummer that Guy Croy is no longer coaching high school football because he's a really, really good coach.
It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. This has been our Prep Extra segment. It's brought to us by the Farmers State Bank. It happens to everyone. You walk off, you leave your debit card in a restaurant, at a grocery store, you lose your purse, your wallet, whatever it might be. Hey, link your Farmers State Bank debit card with the MyCard app. You can shut it off right where you are from your phone. You can also, as soon as you find it, turn it back on. Instant, safe, secure. MyCard app from Farmers State Bank. It's Tutel Nuanez. Hey, it's time for a Wing It Wednesday. Give us a call, 329-1899. 329-1899. A basket of wings from the Desperado Sports Tavern on the line. Who doesn't want some wings? The best wings in the city of Missoula, according to you, the voting public. 329-1899. Colt will have some questions. You and I will have some answers next.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Now, the Montana Club's happy hour features BOGO beverages. Our expertly mixed cocktails, microbrews, domestics, and wine are buy one, get one free 7 days a week from 3 to 5:30. Stop in on Friday for Montini night. Sip on a top shelf martini for only $6, 5:30 to close. When you've worked hard all day and are ready to relax, the Montana Club has got you covered with BOGO happy hour 7 days a week, 3 to 5:30 on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
When you need a bank to help ramp up your savings strategy, look to your local bank, Opportunity Bank of Montana. Build confidence in your financial future when you create a rainy day cushion or take care of the nest egg you already have. Opportunity Bank offers options from basic savings to money market accounts and certificates with competitive rates. There's nothing like the feeling of progress, so let's get started today. Come see us at Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com. Member FDIC.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from Tutel Nuanez 102.9 ESPN Missoula here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom got me a great deal on an automatic car starter this winter. Now it's summer. What sort of stuff you guys got going on down there, Tom?
Well, Colter, coming into the summertime, we're picking up on the window tinting front. So if you need your windows tinted, give us a call. We'll get you scheduled up. Boats and ATVs are starting to come in full swing, and we're also starting to see the hot rods come out to play. Anything audio related, let us know. We'll get you taken care of.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Ryan Tutel here. Throughout the rest of the summer, ESPN Radio and Widmer Brothers Brewing are teaming up to broadcast Tutel and Nuanez from all over Missoula.
Register at select locations to win tickets for when the Grizz take on the Oregon Ducks. Beginning on July 18th, Tutel Nuanez will be drawing winners for tickets to the big game, beginning with a live broadcast from Katie O'Keefe's. Come on down to Katie O'Keefe's and check out their remodeled bar. Enjoy one of the new 16-ounce Widmer Brothers Hefeweizen cans.
And then maybe you'll get picked to head to Autzen Stadium for the Grizz Ducks football game.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good evening, Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. Hey, the 73rd annual East-West Shrine Game takes place in Butte Saturday. It's the final prep all-star football game of the summer, and it pits some of Montana's best talent against one another in one of the most successful fundraising football games in the country. In fact, in the last 10 years, the Montana Shrine Game has raised nearly $1 million for the Shriners Hospital for Children in Spokane. The game is the largest Shrine Game fundraiser that exists in the nation, and this year's East team is coached by longtime Fairfield coach Les Meyer, while the West is coached by Mike Cutler of Flint Creek, a head coach who has led the Drummond-Phillipsburg Co-op the consecutive Class C 8-man championships.
In news as of this afternoon, Catherine Burkhoff, a National Interscholastic Swim Coaches Association All-American for the 4th time in her peerless, honestly, Missoula-Hellgate career. She was a 16-time state champion at Missoula-Hellgate, helped lead the Knights to 4 straight state titles as a team. She has one of the top 100 times in each of the following distinctions, the 100-yard backstroke and the 100-meter freestyle. Very impressive. North Carolina State bound.
And finally, the Missoula Osprey, they've lost 4 straight. They will play once again against the Ogden Raptors tonight, 7 o'clock, first pitch.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
When you touch my hand and talk sweet talk, I got a knocking in my knees and a bubble in my walk, and I'm trembling. That's right, you got me shaking.
Tell me again.
Who's number 1 overall fantasy drafted?
Rob Gronkowski.
That's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. And Kurtz Polaris is celebrating their 30th anniversary. That's right, this year. 30 years they've been in business. Not just this year, in fact, this month. And so all month, they are offering you 30% off. That's right, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris in Missoula and Sealy all month for Kurt's 30-year anniversary sale. It is time for a Wing It Wednesday, and so we go to the phones and we welcome in Rob to the show. Rob, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty good, Rob. Thank you very much. What are you up to today? You cruising around? You hanging out? You at home? You at work? What's going on with you?
I'm hiding in my work truck so I can win some wings.
You know, that's
Nice.
very, very, very smart of you. How old is your work truck?
My work truck is a 2016, so it's not too old.
Okay, I'm guessing it's comfortable to hide in.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I had to hide in a 89 S15 pickup truck on a couple of occasions. That was, you got to get real kind of acrobatic or whatever it is when you try and fit into some of those small spaces on the floorboard. No, I won't get into it beyond that. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Rob is here to play some Wing It Wednesday. So here we go, Rob. 3 questions for you from Coulter. They're all about the Open Championship, okay? The big major golf tournament starting tomorrow. So he'll go through it with you. If you get 2 of these right, you got yourself a basket of wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern, the best wings in the city. If you get all 3, you got yourself a shirt as well. If you need help on any one of these, I'm your lifeline, okay?
Sounds good.
Boy, some chicken wings would really hit the spot. Tummy likey. Tummy want wingy.
All right, Rob, here we go. Question number 1. Coulter, fire away.
All right, Rob, number 1. Which golfer became the first Italian to ever win the British Open last year at Carnoustie? Name the golfer who won the British Open last year, first man ever from Italy to win the Open Championship.
Oh, man, I'm blinking on his name. I want to say it's like Santini or something. I'm going to have to use a lifeline right off the bat.
Well, you know, you're sort of right, although you threw a very broad net. The idea that a Tini or something like that would be in an Italian name is probably a pretty good guess. But Francisco Molinari, I believe, is the golfer we're looking for who won his first and to date only major last Open Championship last year.
Accepting that answer, Rob?
Oh, yeah.
You got it.
Okay.
Francisco Molinari, 1 for 1.
Rob, very good.
No lifeline left, but we got 2 more questions. You just need to get 1 to get some wings. All right, number 2. Nick Faldo, Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, and Seve Ballesteros have all won the Open 3 times. But in the modern era, since 1960, only 1 golfer has won the Open 5 times, most recently in 1983. Name that golfer who has won 5 British Opens.
I should have used my lifeline already. Jack Nicklaus? No.
The Golden Bears only got 3.
Only.
Yeah, you just said that. Yeah.
Only 3 is a huge number. It's remarkable.
Again, I am blanking, and I'm going to have to really mess up on trivia.
Okay, we'll save that one for a minute and let you think a little bit more. We'll go back to number 3 and see where we're at after this. So since Arnold Palmer won back-to-back Open Championships 1961 and 1962, 5 different men have won consecutive Open Championships. Just name one. Give me one guy that's won back-to-back British Opens.
The obvious, I'm going to have to guess Tiger.
Tiger Woods.
Bang.
Tiger Woods he's won 3, and he went back-to-back in 2004, 2005. So you have the wings now. You got the wings. Congratulations. Now we'll circle back around and give you one guess at the guy who has 5 British Opens. Widely considered the greatest British Open player of the modern era.
You want to give me the 4 with 3 again, one more time?
The ones that have 3 are Nick Faldo, Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, and Seve Ballesteros.
Gee, I was going to say Player.
Same vein. I would say this guy is the most similar to Gary Player of any of the...
Yeah, but this is a name that's pretty unique. I mean, it's a name that you're going to know, but it's pretty unique. It's not. This is no. There's no shame in not coming up with this one, I must say, even though he was dominant at this particular tournament.
Yeah, I've got no idea. I'm blanking hard.
Oh, good. It is Tom Watson, winner of 5 Open Championships between 1960.
Tom Watson won 5 Open Championships. That blows my mind.
He actually won. It's amazing. He won 8 majors. I mean, that's just a gigantic number. But Tom Watson at the British was just nails. Short game, his putting, chipping in from the sand to win. It was the whole thing. Phenomenal. But hey, here's the deal. Rob, you got wings to the Desperado, my friend. So you got nothing to worry about. You did what you got what you came for. Give your information there to Reese, and we'll get you set up. All right, bud?
Perfect. I appreciate it.
You got it. Well done. Now back to work. Okay. Rob Hyden in the truck. Very good. Yeah. Oh, it is remarkable. Like if you watch this tournament, you kind of. They'll show Tom Watson. I remember a couple years ago. I mean, I would not have remembered that about Tom Watson, at all. But for a couple of years ago, when he played in his last Open Championship, and it was such a dramatic ending, and he, walking across. I think it was the Stone Bridge at St. Andrews, if I'm not mistaken. It might be, but coming down 18 and the rousing ovation that he received on basically a lifetime of excellence at this particular tournament, and with much fanfare and a very. I mean, that's the thing about Tom Watson is, they call golf the gentleman's game. Well, I got a lot of problems with that, but. If ever there was going to be a guy who exemplified that thing, Tom Watson would probably be it. I mean, you couldn't seem to find a more sort of demurring and kind and sort of genial character than Tom Watson, it seems to me. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Quick break. We'll come back on the other side, talk about what we're up to tomorrow, what we want you to do. We want to see you. So we're going to get into some of that. Maybe some Osprey baseball. Wrap this thing up on a Wednesday next.
Alpine Touch has mastered keeping your taste buds happy by spicing up anything you throw on the grill this summer. Now, let Alpine Touch keep your mouth watering whenever you want their new sunflower shooters. Their new jumbo sunflower seeds seasoned with Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasonings. And Alpine Touch sunflower shooters will be available all summer at every Osprey baseball home game. Available at retail locations around the state and online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Less Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get up to $150 instant rebate on 4 backcountry MT or AT tires or $50 on 4 road control passenger tires. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time. Terms and conditions apply. Details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
Hey everybody, here with my good friend Josh from the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, if I've been in an accident, how much is it going to cost me to hire you?
Well, we take cases on a contingency fee. And what that means for you is that if you're hurt in an accident, we only get paid if you make a recovery. You'll never owe us anything out of pocket.
What about the call for a consultation?
That's not a problem. We don't charge anything for an initial consultation, so you have absolutely nothing to risk by calling us.
If you're injured in a car accident, call the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
Hi, boys and girls. Ryan Tutel
and Colter Nuanez
from Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio, from your very favorite Tutel and Nuanez podcast, and now officially Gracious Mercy on television statewide.
That's right. We've been doing a radio show and a podcast since August of 2017, and now it's time for us to expand our reach into statewide television on SWX.
We're on SWX every weekday from 4 to 6 live on your televisions. It's available on channel 199 on Spectrum Cable or on 23.3 on your antenna television. And you can download the Watch SWX app and get us that way on your phones and devices as well.
And of course, we'll still be right here, 102.9 ESPN Radio from Missoula and the Bitterroot Valley. And as always, you can find the podcast, the live stream, and everything else you need, 102.9ESPN.com.
Colter, do you think that we're spreading ourselves too thin? Are we going to saturate these people and they're just going to start hating us, the inevitable backlash of the great heights to which we have now attained?
No chance. Tutel and Nuanez, Montana's only statewide sports talk show.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
What time's the best time to wake up? It's 2:10 and 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studio, as always. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. And July is Kurtz Polaris' 30th birthday. That's right. This month, they were celebrating 30 years in business, and they're helping themselves to giving you savings. That's the birthday present. 30% off, in fact. That's right, 30% off MSRP on select parts and accessories with the purchase of any new Polaris off-road vehicle, Husqvarna and Beta dirt bike, or any Crest pontoon boat all month long. Some restrictions apply. See Kurtz for details. Get to Kurtz Polaris, Missoula and Sealy all July for their 30-year anniversary sale. Tomorrow, well, okay, first of all, I'll just say this. But the wake-up thing. Mark Wahlberg posted a typical day for Mark Wahlberg.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to take a stab at what time he claims to wake up?
3:30.
2:30.
That seems dumb.
Bedtime is 7:30. So really,
so he's getting it in 7 hours.
7 hours, and he also, does he take a nap in there? I don't know. Wake up at 2:30. From 2:45 to 3:15 is prayer time. Breakfast at 3:15 a.m.
I'd be on my fourth meal by 2.
He is on. He's got a workout from 3:40 to 5:15 a.m. So almost a 90-minute workout from 3:15 to 5:15 in the morning. Post-workout meal, then a shower. Now the shower lasts.
So he's already eaten twice by the time it's 6 in the morning.
Shower lasts 90 minutes. That seems excessive. 6 till 7:30 shower. He's golfing at
exfoliating.
Golfing at 7:30 in the morning. Snack at 8. Cryo chamber recovery at 9:30. Snack at 10:30. Family time, meetings, work calls from 11 to 1. Lunch at 1. Meetings and work calls. From,
so this guy's already had 2. He's had a pre and post workout meal and 2 snacks before he gets lunch.
Yeah, but wait. Then he's got lunch. Then he's got meetings. Then he picks up the kids at school, snack with them. Workout number 2 from 4 to 5. Then a shower, dinner, family time, 5:30, bedtime, 7:30. Regimented. again, this is a typical day. You would think there would be some variety, well, with shoots and all, you know. I like this schedule. I just like it to be like 9 hours later.
Right.
Just do the exact same thing, but just rotate it. Bedtime, 2:30 a.m. You know?
I totally agree. Mm-hmm. I want to know what he actually eats during all these times when he's eating.
It's a good question. Good golfer, though, Mark Wahlberg, what I understand. Coulter, you and I are excited because tomorrow kicks off our big summer giveaway promotion down at Katie O'Keefe's. We're going to be there tomorrow. Katie O'Keefe's, they're in the Stevens Plaza. And we're going to be there from 4 to 6. We're doing this show live down there tomorrow. Widmer Hefeweizen is going to be available. In fact, if you're there early, the first handful of folks through the door, do we have
we are just going to buy $100 worth of beers.
Okay.
So first $100 worth.
So you come in there and have yourself a free one early, and we are going to be picking names out of the box there tomorrow for a pair of tickets to go see the Montana Grizzlies and the Oregon Ducks at Autzen Stadium. And this I'm pumped about. I can't wait for this. I can't wait for all the games. But this game is going to be a lot of fun. One of the true meccas, right, of college football.
Yep, night game.
They're at Autzen. Night game on the Pac-12 network, a nationally televised game. I can tell you, the atmosphere surrounding night games is great. This will be the second consecutive night game for the Grizzlies because they play a night game in their first home game of the year. We've just found out as well on the 7th. I think that is the week prior to this game. But between now and tomorrow at 4, namely this evening, you should go to Katie O'Keefe's and put your name in the box so that you have an opportunity to win these tickets. We're going to do a must-be-present to win, but we're going to pull the tickets, 4:30, 4:45, and we will try and be generous with the winner to give them an opportunity to arrive to actually receive their tickets. But we want to make sure that we're giving the tickets away to somebody who's there. But go down there, put your name in the box, and see if you can't win a pair of tickets. It'd be a phenomenal win. It'll be our first of many. We're giving away 9 pairs of tickets. I mean, that's a ton of tickets to this football game throughout the course of the summer from a bunch of different venues. But again, we kick it off tomorrow at Katie O'Keefe's. We're really excited to be down there thanks to Widmer Brothers.
It'll be great. It'll be fun. If you haven't checked out Katie O'Keefe's since they remodeled it a little while back, it looks tremendous. Looks great. We'll be in the downstairs parts when you walk in the main entrance in the Stevens Center. Just hang a left. You'll see the main old part of the bar. With the casino machines and stuff like that, but if you just go, it's not really downstairs. It's like 3 steps down, but it's great venue. It's a really cool place. A ton of cool Grizz memorabilia and relics in there, and should be a fun place to get this thing started. And just remember, we're going to be at remote places every Thursday all the way leading up to this game on September 14th. The one exception being on July 31st, we'll be at the Desperado Sports Tavern on a Wednesday, because that is when we do our Wing It Wednesday, so we'll do Wing It Wednesday live. But to go to all the places around town, this week's Katie O'Keefe's, next week is Fuddruckers, then we wrap up the month with the Desperado, and then you also can find boxes to register and look forward to our remote broadcasts at Reds, Stockman's Bar, Paradise Falls, Locals, the Press Box, and the Iron Horse.
And we have the schedule posted on our Facebook page.
We also have it on our website, 1029ESPN.com.
And on the website. So, we don't expect you to keep track of all of these places, for the whole summer. So you can go there and look up where we're going to be. And we will certainly have, be telling you each week where we're headed that week as well. But go stuff the box at Katie O'Keefe's, because once it's done at that place, that's it. It's done. So tomorrow we kick it off there, and we're certainly excited to do so. Coulter, the Thunder, the Oklahoma City Thunder, have stalled in their attempts to move Chris Paul.
Yeah, no one wants that contract.
Shocker, right? With the $38 million, whatever it is, for the next 3 years for Chris Paul. Now, I'm so interested in this because I've wondered, what team is, I think Chris Paul, I think, is still plays at a very high level, and he's a guy that anybody would want to have on their team. But again, that contract is just exorbitant, I think, for a lot of teams where, you're talking about a a high-end max contract that is traveling around with Chris Paul, and he is not a high-end max player. And so you have to find a unique situation which there's a team that can absorb that salary financially and wants a guy like Chris Paul there. I mean, he let's put it like this. He wants to play for a contender. It's hard to imagine that there's a contender out there that finds that appealing. All the teams that are middle of the road or bad teams are the teams that are like, we got cap space and we'd love to have Chris Paul here playing for us. He'll be a draw, bring fans to the stadium, that kind of thing. And I don't see a way in which Chris Paul gets pacified in this situation and goes to a team where he's really excited to be on that team. I just don't see it happening.
I know, because it's really too bad the situation that it is with the contract and his age and his injury history, because if somehow Chris Paul could get traded to a team that is at one of the up-and-coming teams, if he could get the three teams that I think would be so intriguing for Chris Paul are the Hawks, the Kings, and the Pelicans. If he went back to New Orleans, imagine him mentoring Lonzo Ball, playing with all the young players from Brandon Ingram to Zion Williamson. By the way, have you seen this Jackson Hayes kid?
Yeah.
The kid that they traded and everybody was like, kind of who? The kid, he was a one and done out of Texas. He's a 6'11" guy that really, he didn't have a double-double last year, not one, even though he's 6'11". That was a astounding stat. But this kid had a couple dunks in the summer league where you're like, what? Well, I mean, he is an unbelievable athlete. But if Chris Paul could fit there.
They don't have a ton of money tied up because they got a bunch of rookies and second-year guys, third-year guys now.
Right, but I just don't think that with the way that they are dedicated to rebuilding on the young core that they have, that they would want to bring in a guy like Chris Paul. Imagine Chris Paul and the Kings, though. I mean, that would be a really fun team for him to be on. I mean, obviously you don't want to take any of the control of the team away from De'Aaron Fox, but Chris Paul would be great there, and he would be so fun in Atlanta too. But also, you can't do it with Trae Young.
Yeah, I mean, it's he's in a very awkward position, which is a position where he can still play, but he's not beloved by any one city, right? He's not,
That's going to be the most interesting part, because people forget when Hurricane Katrina hit, Chris Paul is still a really young player. The Pelicans, which at the time were the Hornets, had to go play in Oklahoma City. So Chris Paul has actually played in Oklahoma City before Oklahoma City ever even had an NBA franchise. Who loved Russell Westbrook more than anybody? Oklahoma City did.
Yeah.
They might just love Chris Paul.
Yeah. But he's kind of already established he doesn't want to be there. I know. Keep tracking it. Boys and girls, Osprey baseball coming up in 45 minutes, both on ESPN Radio and SWX Montana. Enjoy the game tomorrow from Katie O'Keefe's. We'll look forward to being with all of you there and see what pops up in the next 22 hours in the sports world. We'll bring it to you. It's Tutel, it's Nuanez. Thanks for being with us on another Wednesday afternoon. We look forward to Sam Herder on the ESPN Roundtable tomorrow as well. See you then.
Most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Don't mess around with Mother Nature. Your home is your biggest investment. For protection that lasts, don't trust your home to anything less than Sick and Prolux stains from Garden City Paint and Glass. Sick and Prolux stains are tough enough to take on Montana's 4 seasons, providing excellent moisture resistance for outdoor railings, decks, and outdoor furniture. Sick and Prolux exterior and interior stains. Available only at Garden City Paint and Glass in Missoula, across from the Southside McDonald's at 3217 Brook Street.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Down, pump it up.
always has your favorite snacks and drinks. Check out their new item, Big Sky Spiked Seltzers, variety 12-pack cans for only $14.99. Need a snack? Old Trapper 3 1/4 ounce jerky is just $3.99. Town Pump is there for you, right down the road.
Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
It happens. You're positive you put your bank card back in your wallet, but the next time you need it, it's missing. Avoid the panic and take control with the MyCard app and debit card from Farmers State Bank. Our app lets you control your debit card and securely turn it off right from your phone. Safe, secure, instant. MyCard is available only at Farmers State Bank. Ask about it at any of our 9 locations or learn more at farmersebank.com. Farmers State Bank, member FDIC.
Still emerging from your winter hibernation and need to get your bearings straight? Cruise on down to Borda, Missoula for all your spring and summer needs. Come check out their men's and women's streetwear, sunglasses, and shoes from brands like Vans, Adidas, Thrasher, Volcom, and the original Borda, Missoula brand. They also have all your skating needs covered, from tune-ups to fresh-made custom boards. Borda, Missoula, Missoula's original board shop since 1989.